Hi.
Hey there.
Say something.
Say something. Hey, it's good to be back. I know we haven't had a video for a little bit, but we've just been really busy, right?
Oh, really busy.
Really busy. So we're going to talk a little bit more about our trip to southern France and some of the events that took place there. I just wanted to cover a couple things from my last video that people asked. So I mentioned a meeting that I had as a mission president with Elder Holland, presiding at that meeting with stake presidents, C's, and bishops in a coordinating council in Taylorsville. And if I were guessing, I would say it was probably 2017, sometime in 2017. So the question was brought up, and I don't need to rehash it, but if you just remember my last video, but a question by a stake president was asked, parents of children that had quote, come out of the closet, and what do you do, because the parents are following the children and defending them and leaving the church, and so what do you do? And Elder Holland was asked that question. He turned to those of us that were on the stand and asked if any of us had anything to say about that. And I raised my hand because we have a daughter that was in that situation and still is. And how Sue and I were always united, and we love our daughter, stay in communication with our daughter, but our daughter also knows that we love the Lord and we love His doctrine, and we don't support that lifestyle, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, and there was a little bit more. I can't remember everything. It's like when things happen like that, spontaneous. You're just going by the Spirit and whatnot. So so I never said what Elder Holland stated. And as far as my memory goes, the conversation ended pretty quick. And Elder Holland just put a stamp on what I said. He actually said, I do remember this. He said, well, that's about as real as it gets, something like that. And then he just proceeded to say, that's good counsel that President Palmer gave, and, let's move on. One thing he did talk about was, this was prior to the church disassociating with the Boy Scouts of America. And he gave us kind of a heads up on that. And he said it was all because of legal issues. And he said, you'll see that this will probably happen pretty soon, that the church will no longer be affiliated with the Boy Scouts. And that was in that meeting too. I just remembered that. So that's just kind of a follow-up on that. I did want to just bring up one thing before we get into the trip and what we learned on that trip, which you're going to cover mostly.
Well, with your help.
With my help.
Mostly.
Okay. So, Alma chapter 4, I think we covered this, was it last week or is it this week?
No, it was last week.
Last week,
This week's 5 through 7.
5 through 7, okay. So, verse 6, and it came to pass in the 8th year of the reign of Judges that the people of the church began to wax proud, and because of their exceeding riches, their fine silks and their fine twined linen, and because of their many flocks and herds, and their gold and their silver, and all manner of precious things, which they had obtained by their industry, and in all these things they were lifted up in the pride of their eyes, for they began to wear very costly apparel. Now this was the cause of much affliction to Alma, yea, and to many of the people whom Alma had consecrated to be teachers and priests and elders over the church. Yea, many of them were sorely grieved for the wickedness which they saw had begun to be among their people. For they saw and beheld with great sorrow that the people of the church began to be lifted up in the pride of their eyes, and to set their hearts upon riches and upon the vain things of the world, that they began to be scornful one towards another, and they began to persecute those that did not believe according to their own will and pleasure. And thus, in the 8th year of the reign of the Judges, there began to be great contention among the people of the church, Yea, and their envyings and strife and malice and persecutions and pride, even to exceed the pride of those who did not belong to the church of God. And thus ended the 8th year of the reign of Judges, and the wickedness of the church was a great stumbling block to those who did not belong to the church. And thus the church began to fail in its progress. If it can happen then, it can happen today. That's just my thought.
That's just your thought, huh?
That's just my thought. I don't want to say anything more.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about France. Let's talk about the whole purpose of this focus trip that we went with the Legacy Tour, and it was beyond what I thought it was going to be.
Is this backwards? Can you see this? Traditions of Mary Magdalene in France tour.
And Chris Kimball was our guide. We had a tour manager, David. I can't remember David's last name. Anyway.
He's our best friend.
Best
we love
friend,
him so much. He's just the greatest person.
One of the most kind. He's a true gentleman, right? Has the British accent, speaks perfect French. This trip went flawless. It was awesome, and the people we were with were just great. But the focus was traditions of Mary Magdalene in France. No,
in France.
In France, yeah. And most of it took place in southern France, although we did end up in Paris, and we'll get into that. So,
okay,
take it away.
Take it away. First of all, I just want to say that I said a couple of things to a couple of people, and when you get home from a trip and you're so excited, and I have been to the dermatologist in case you're wondering. So, anyway, somebody said to me, I am not a feminist. And another person said, I don't believe that Jesus Christ could have a wife here upon the earth. So, I know we all have our own views. We learned so much, and it's just been such an eye-opening thing. First of all, I want to say, I wrote a few things down because I have been thinking a lot about this. Okay, first of all, feminism is the act of women acting like men. And we as women don't want to preside, protect, or provide. At least I don't. So thank you for doing that. Yep. I'm just gonna carry on with my notes. I wish I had a computer here, but I wrote down, how does marriage and family relate to the living God? So why would we even discuss? And why would Mary Magdalene even be important? So how does marriage and family relate to the living God or relate to Jesus Christ? Okay, I just listened to something today that was so interesting. In fact, this whole week my mind has just been expanded with the spirit of certain things that have been said. The standard view of Joseph Smith's time. So I'm going to talk about Joseph Smith first, because we know that he's a prophet of this last dispensation. The prophet of this last dispensation. So don't get me wrong. Don't call up. Don't complain about me that I said he was the only. I didn't say. I said he is the prophet of this last dispensation. Okay. The standard view of Joseph Smith's time was that the fall of man, and this is what the world thought at that time, that Joseph Smith began his work. That the fall of man was probably somehow mixed up with Eve, and that she was to be condemned, and marriage was a compromise with the world, and eventually this whole family and marriage thing would be done away with. Because in the next life, there wouldn't be such a thing as marriage or family. That is what the preachers taught.
At the time of Joseph Smith.
At the time of Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
Well, Joseph Smith learns and then teaches that Adam and Eve together understood what they were doing when they partook of the fruit, and it was done in order to continue procreation, which was divinely approved, and marriage at its best would lead lead to heaven would lead to heaven. For it was the very work and glory of God to be fathers and mothers here upon this earth. And instead of marriage being done away with in life, let's see, the truly faithful would be sanctified in their marriage, and the Spirit of God would be brought into it, and they would be rewarded by being taken back to the highmost levels of immortality and eternal life. This is why we are known as a family religion. So it's interesting now to know that our culture devalues womanhood as being a wife and a mother. And womanhood is valued now if you are successful with making money in a big career and have the highest of educations. That is what feminism is at its finest. It is for a woman to be just like a man. So, in the family, a proclamation to the world, we've been told women are nurturers. We were created to grow a baby inside of us and to nurture our children. Men weren't created that way. Sorry, you'll never get that experience, and it is just amazing. Their creation is to help create, to preside, protect, and provide. So think of how beautiful this man-wife relationship is that can bring precious souls into the world together. I know that some women must work to house, feed, and clothe their families. So don't get all bent when I am reading and telling you what a woman's role and character is. But this is God's pattern on earth. A man, it's his pattern, period. A man, a woman, and children. God doesn't create a pattern that causes a dead end. He creates an eternal pattern of increase. So, now, Chris Kimball did not teach all of that. She taught other wonderful and marvelous things. If you have any interest in any of the books that we have purchased about any of this, please ask.
Yeah, just put in the comment section that you're interested, and I'll post it if there's no real interest, but there's been so much research and so many really good resources, and the traditions are powerful. They're strong of Christ being married to Mary Magdalene and having a family. Now, we don't teach it as doctrine in the church. We're not teaching it as doctrine here, but the evidence is very, very strong. Now, and in more ways than one. First off, what Sue just said, if Christ is the example, and this is the pattern, the perfect example, then that's, that would be, he would do exactly, just like baptism, right? Just like being baptized, he did it to fulfill all righteousness. He didn't need to be. Well, he would have continued that example. The other thing, there's so many other things, and I'm sure you'll cover it. The one thing I wanted to mention, though, is that if you just do a little research, a little Google research, and I've said this many times before, but if you have a question, don't go to the church website in their search engine. You'll never find it. But what you can do is say, was Christ ever married? And then just put LDS.
In Google.
Yeah, in Google. Yeah. Was Christ married?
And then it will take you to the
LDS.
church's website.
Mm-hmm. It'll take you to many sites, but the church website will be one of them. You'll find Joseph Fielding Smith said absolutely yes, but we don't teach it. And then he said, we don't want to cast pearl before swine, is what he said. So we don't preach it. Orson Hyde, of all people, which is really interesting because he's the one that dedicated the Holy Land. He expressed not only was Christ married to Mary Magdalene, but perhaps other women as well. But it was just his thought. It was his idea. So this is how we approach this, but very, very enlightening. And we'll be talking, well, Sue will probably be bringing up some of the things that we saw and kind of the evolution of that it was original, that it was very much taught that they were married, and then it disappeared because of the dominant religion at the time, right? Wanted that to go away. And then how people within the church, the existing church at the time, had ways of continuing that tradition but hiding it from the Catholic Church. I'll just say the Catholic Church. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to finish here.
Yeah.
So during King Josiah's time, there are historical records stating demolishing and dismantling of mother gods or women in the role of creation. But we know what happens above happens below. Parents in heaven, parents on earth. There is it's called the dyadic idea of two individuals who are interdependent and who need each other to facilitate their survival and reproductive goals. I know that sounds pretty simple, but we need each other. We're made for each other. So they consider Mary the dyadic partner of Christ, Jesus being the literal Son of God, and Mary is considered the high tower, or the towering one. And Migdal, so Mary Magdalene, Magdal, in Hebrew and Aramaic means tower. Mary is the tower of faith, tower of strength. When women were taken out of the role of creation, Mary Magdalene was taken out of history. Little was written. Taken out of Scripture, she is considered the apostle of the apostles.
I love that. The apostle of the apostles. And you think of it, absolutely she was. There's no question about it.
Okay, you start.
Do you want to start like where we went on our trip, or just thoughts?
Just thoughts.
So with Mary Magdalene, the traditional thought is that she was from Magdala. Sue and I have been there. I've been there with my son, and there's a beautiful church dedicated to the women of the church, of the early church. There's statues around. It's right on the Sea of Galilee. In fact, I just got goosebumps thinking about it. It's a beautiful place. But as we look at these traditions, she's probably not from Magdala. She could be. All these things are, there's different theories, there's different thoughts. Now, some traditions say that Mary Magdalene was actually Celtic. And there's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of depictions in stained glass, and the ancient stained glass. I'm talking like 900 to 1300 AD. Depictions of Mary Magdalene with red hair, very fair complexion, and that the tradition would have been that Joseph of Arimathea, with his trade routes in France and in England, northern France, southern England, and southern France, Christ had gone with him there. Perhaps that's where he married Mary Magdalene, and she was from there and then brought her back. Very strong tradition of that. The other tradition that we think of is that that Mary was from Israel, maybe from Magdala, and that Christ, the wedding at Cana was actually Christ's wedding. That's another tradition. And that actual wedding where he performed the first miracle is what I think it's in John, talks about turning the water into wine. Well, tradition is not tradition in the sense of what we're talking about, but Jewish tradition is in weddings is that the groom provides for the wine at the wedding. And so this would be Christ's responsibility to provide the wine. And so that could have been his own wedding. So there's a lot of possibilities here, but most possibilities point towards Christ being married to Mary Magdalene. And she's the first that he appears to after his resurrection. She anoints him. These are all symbolic of a companion, of a marital companion, doing these things. And then him coming to her first. And that's why she's considered the apostle of apostles, because she was the first to witness the resurrected Lord. Think of that. The very first to witness that. That's the definition of an apostle, one who can testify of the resurrection of Christ, right? And so we don't think of it as a male-female thing. We think of it as someone who witnessed the resurrected Lord, and she was the first. So all these things point towards a marital connection between Mary Magdalene and Jesus Christ. Now, where things get interesting, and what we can talk about now, is this idea of the two Marys, Mother Mary, or the Virgin Mary, or what's the other, the Madonna Mary, and then Mary Magdalene. So what happened early on, there was this belief of Christ being married. Well, the Catholic Church, I can't remember the Pope's name. Can you remember? Anyway, in order to control the priests and to keep them celibate, he had to create this image that Christ wasn't married. And so what they did is they took the stories of Mary Magdalene and created this person that was a prostitute,
full of
devils and all kinds of nefarious things to degrade this person that really had a key role in the early church. And so from that, Christianity, which Catholic Church was the main, force of Christianity, really went away from anything to do with Christ being married and really diminishing the role of Mary Magdalene and outright making her almost a villain in a way. Well, there were believers that still believed that she was the wife of Jesus. And so what they would do is they would create this confusion of Mother Mary and wife Mary. And it's in order so that they could hide it from the Catholic Church and say, oh, this is Mother Mary. But in all reality, it was the wife of Jesus. It was Mary Magdalene. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
And so in some of these churches, they had what was called the Black Madonna. Now, this wasn't black as far as a racial, but her skin was darkened to keep her in the shadow, to keep her in the shadows, right? And so you go to these ancient churches, mostly in southern France, but not totally, where this Black Madonna represented to the church, it was Mother Mary, but to the believers, it was
Mary Magdalene.
Mary Magdalene. Okay. So where did we go to first?
Well, the first, we drove up to Saint Baume or down.
Yeah. We flew into Marseille, and then
We'll make all of this short. We're not going to tell you exactly.
Yeah, we're not going to do a travel log.
But there was a beautiful, beautiful grotto there that we hiked and hiked and hiked and hiked and hiked. It was a pretty steep climb.
It's on the edge of it, in a cliff.
It is in a cliff.
Way steep.
And it was a grotto where they had purportedly stated that Mary lived there for 30 years. And I don't know if she lived there day and night. I don't know. But anyway, that's where she was supposed to have lived.
And this would have been after the resurrection. And she was sent. Now, some traditions say that she was sent without sail or oar. Other traditions say that they purposefully got on a boat and went and landed in southern France. We actually went to the church that's dedicated to Mary Magdalene and her group. And where they landed, and it was spectacular. There was so much art of the Marys together, along with Joseph of Arimathea, on a little boat. And we know that there were probably 12 of them or so on this little boat. But like, what do we call you? Watcher Palmer, Preacher Palmer, Brother Palmer, Hun, Scotty Palmer.
Just the traditions of Mary are so rich there. I mean, just amazing. But I love that place so much because of all the artwork there that filled the church of the Marys and Joseph of Arimathea. I mean, simple, not elaborate, not...
Very simple churches.
Very
These
simple.
are old and simple.
Right. And the artwork was the very same. It was just spectacular.
And icons.
Hanging on the walls.
Yeah. So an icon really created the ability for a church to be built. I know
what you're going to... Yeah.
So in the cave, you know what it reminded me of? If you've ever hiked up to Timpanogos Cave. Quite long, steep, switchbacks. That's kind of how it was to get up to this cave. And it's a grotto and water, awesome, and very spirit-felt, okay? Very spirit-felt. And like Sue said, she was there for 30, they say, lived there for 30 years. And they found a skull of a female, carbon dated 1st century. And it's not there at the grotto, but in a church below. You can go there and you can see the skull. We were able to take pictures of it. Now look, we're not saying that's Mary's skull, but it's just amazing how...
It's a skull of a person from the 1st century.
And a woman.
And a woman that was there in that area, so...
Yeah. The other cool thing that happened, and I'll just say this real quick, is that after we came down from the grotto, the monks, there's a monastery.
This is the greatest.
And they were so this year, Pentecost is for Christians is a month separate from the Jewish Pentecost or Feast of Weeks or Shavuot, which is right now coming up for the Jews. But a month ago or thereabouts, it was for the Christians because it was leap year for the Jewish feasts, and it delayed it a month, I guess, because usually the day of Pentecost is really close. It's 50 days thereafter of Passover, 50 days after Passover. So anyway, we were there for Pentecost for the Catholics, for these monks, and they had a mass, which we weren't able to make it to the mass meeting because we were up in the grotto. But they had this big luncheon that the monks put on, and we got invited to go and eat with. And was it the best? And were they the kindest, nicest people?
It was amazing.
It was amazing.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
It was so cool, so special. And that area, the whole area there was just full of tradition of Mary Magdalene, and the church embraces it now. The Catholic Church embraces Mary now. She's a saint.
She is.
So they changed all that, and I can't remember, it was like in the 50s, 60s?
Yeah, it's been recent.
It's fairly recent that they did that. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay.
We're only 30 minutes in.
Okay, well, good. Then let's just, you continue.
So we were mainly in the southern part. Sometimes we were right on the Mediterranean. Sometimes we'd move up. But this one particular area wasn't really like Mary Magdalene-ish, but you have to go there. It's Carcassonne. And it is so rich in history, especially with the Cathars. Sorry, and these were like free thinkers, and the Catholic Church did not like them, and so they had like an inquisition where they murdered. It's a really dark period for the Catholic Church, and they admit it, where they slaughtered thousands. And this area of Carcassonne, am I saying that right, was kind of a central location for the Cathars. And to this day, you can just feel it's a different kind of an independent feel. They're in France, right? They're French, but they're very proud people, I think, of their own culture and everything else. So there's a walled city, the ancient city of Carcassonne, and it's a fortress. And in there was a not an elaborate church, but I mean, it was pretty significant. It was pretty amazing, but not as amazing as some of the other ones we went into. But some very significant stained glass. Artwork and just a special place. But the whole Carcassonne, if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I would recommend Googling it and seeing it.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's
the stained glass and the stories that the stained glass tell. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. My favorite part of that whole church is there's a picture of the Savior, and his heart is glowing. So there's a picture of him.
Yeah.
And his heart is glowing, emanating all these colors. It is just the most spectacular thing. And I heard a near-death story just yesterday, I think it was. And one of the people who had this near-death experience, he said that he could see. He said it wasn't that Christ was robed in white or people were robed in white. They were so pure, he couldn't really distinguish their articles of clothing, but their hearts glowed. Mm. Is that just the most amazing, wonderful thing? Anyway, that painting is just spectacular.
Well, I'm thinking of it. If you guys have listened to podcasts or anything, Sean Ryan. He had what's the guy's name that he had?
John. Oh, my good old friend John Burke. John
Burke, who has spent his life studying near death. And I don't even like calling them near death. These people are clinically dead, right? So it's not near death, they're dead. and then they come back to life. Sometimes it's a medical procedure. Sometimes it's just the grace of God. They come back and their experiences. And but Sean Ryan interviews him, and Sean Ryan's a fairly recent believer. He's a former Navy SEAL, and sometimes his language. Actually, on this video, he
was clean.
He was clean. Sometimes he drops the F-bomb once in a while, just because of his. Who he was and who he still is, but he's just a good person. But his interview, and he's interviewed, Tucker Carlson and Jordan Peterson and a lot of people, but this particular interview is very well worth it. So,
John Burke. And
John Burke.
He's the author of life after, gosh, imagine heaven or imagine the God of heaven.
Yeah.
And what he had to say yesterday about some of the experiences of people that he's interviewed, it's amazing.
Okay, so while we were in Carcassonne, not too far from there was the Chapel of Mary Magdalene, and this tower built dedicated to Mary Magdalene. This place was, I can't even remember the name of it.
I can't either, and it really was one of my
we
most
wound
favorite
up
days.
through the mountains and in France. So we're between
Rennes-le-Château.
Rennes-le-Château. Oh, probably either number 1 or number 2 on my list of feeling a lot of spiritual energy there. So we're in between the Black Mountains and the Pyrenees Mountains in this kind of valley area, but it's pretty mountainous, right?
Very.
And
yeah.
rivers and just spectacularly beautiful fields and gardens and just awesome. But up on top of this mountain is this chateau, and we got treated to a lunch there. This guy, he did a meditation with the piano in this ancient little church. It couldn't have been.
Was the Black Madonna? Did we see a Black Madonna there? There was the church.
No,
I can't remember
not
where
there.
we saw.
It was like that though, where we went.
We went down below. Oh, I remember.
Chartres
I can see
Cathedral,
Chartres.
where we went down into that.
Yeah.
And that
And
was
saw
where
the
the Black Madonna was there. So we were looking for Black Madonnas. We were looking for traditions and other things. But this chateau, if that's on the, I don't even know if you can find that on the internet, but that is spectacular. And the view from up there, just anyway.
It's
Okay.
so beautiful.
And then
I don't know.
I would say so. Notre Dame Cathedral has tons, but as you know, a few years ago it was not totally destroyed, but severely damaged with very suspicious fire, and it's being rebuilt.
Electrical fire.
Yeah, electrical. But hopefully by the end of this year, it might be open to the public again. So we might have to make another trip to France. So we just could see the outside, but there was I can't remember right in Paris, but there's the cathedral of just all stained glass. It's a marvel because you can't figure out how the structure is being held up. And I think there was a Black Madonna there.
There wasn't.
Yes,
there was.
I think there was. Anyway, this place was spectacular. I can't remember the name of it. But about an hour away, depending on traffic,
I have it on my phone.
from Paris is Chartres Cathedral. You'll look it up. This was one of the stations of the Knights Templar, where they would go into degrees, of knighthood of the Templar, and there were 7 stations, right? And I think did it begin in Spain or Portugal?
Portugal, I believe.
Portugal, and then go up. The 7th one was the Roslin Chapel in Scotland, which we went to.
Oh, Saint-Chapelle.
Saint-Chapelle.
Yeah.
Now that's the one with the glass.
Yeah.
Saint-Chapelle. Absolutely incredible.
Breathtaking.
And you could spend all day just looking at the stories in stained glass. And we had a really nice local guide, a lady that showed us how to read the stained glass because there's an order to it. Because they tell stories, each pane, if you will. But Chartres Cathedral was the culmination of our trip. Of course, we did some touristy things in Paris, the Eiffel Tower, stuff like that. But that really wasn't the purpose of this trip. If you want to do that, you do that specifically. We didn't make it to the Louvre or anything like that. Just no time because
we went past it on a boat.
yeah. We this was a very focused trip, but Chartres Cathedral, the symbolism inside and out, very much the feel of Rosslyn Chapel. Roslin's very more rustic and old and small, but this one is an amazing cathedral.
And Chartres is where they have the veil of Mary,
the veil of
the Virgin Mary, that wrapped her and the babe. That's what they say it is.
So the veil, as it covered her and then underneath the babe, and you can see the veil there. And one time there was a fire. I think it was it like 14 or 1500. There was a fire, and 3 of the priests grabbed the veil and went down underneath, and the fire burned for 3 days, and they saved the veil.
I think it was earlier than that. It was in 1200.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sorry about the dates. We have the information, but we're just kind of going on. Anyway, you get to see these icons are amazing. Now,
talk about the labyrinth.
Oh, the labyrinth. Okay, a lot of these ancient churches would have a labyrinth that it's like it'd be similar to a corn maze, but there's always a pathway, and it goes to the center, and the center is Christ, right? And so you have this stained glass window that's way high like this, and if you pancaked it down, it would center over the labyrinth, and it was the same size as the labyrinth, which was huge.
The stained glass of Christ would land right at the heart of the labyrinth.
Yeah, and right in the center of the stained glass was Christ, and it was circular. And so it would come right down if you were able to fold that wall down. And I had my divining rods. I might have told this in a previous video. I can't remember. But there was a lot of action in that chapel. A lot of action. These buildings are built on ley lines, many of them. And they're built there for a reason. There was this amazing story of this... in World War II, a Texan who was a commander of some sort, a leader.
He was a colonel.
He was a colonel
of the war, World War II.
And he got the orders to actually bomb or
demolish Chartres Cathedral.
Chartres Cathedral, because they were told that the Germans had been using it as a fortress, as a stronghold. So go ahead and destroy it. And he had this strong impression to not do it. And so he went in there himself, right?
Yeah, he cleared the whole
he went
cathedral in 20 minutes. The cathedral,
it's massive. And the tower.
It's massive.
And people could have been hiding anywhere and taken him out. And he was able to radio back and say, I've cleared it. We're not going to destroy it.
Well, and then he put an American flag at the very top of the cathedral. On the top spire.
Thank you. Saying that it's secure and it's in our hands. And so a couple of hours after that, he's just, I think, north,
of the cathedral.
And he was killed in action there. And the French people, and particularly of Chartres, the town, they revere him. They have a monument, a plaque, and everything for him. It's just amazing. I can't remember his name right now, but I did mention that, I think. So that was kind of the culmination of the trip.
Are you going to talk about the labyrinth and how many stones are in it?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so the labyrinth has how they make this and how they create this labyrinth. I don't have any idea, but it's huge. There are 270 stones in it, and it's the same period of time. Excuse you.
270 white stones.
White stones.
There's thousands of stones.
Is it 270 or 274? I can't
270.
remember.
It's the gestation of a woman having a baby.
Yeah, it's 270 days, or 274 days.
Yeah.
You'll look it up, I'm sure.
So it's all about birth. Some of the pictures, stained glass, there's some where Mary Magdalene is in the Garden of Gethsemane with the apostles. That was really touching. I don't know.
I don't know. There's just so many, and it's unbelievable. The curtain, they call it the curtain. It's around the organ, in the Charts, and it's this great big, huge, carved.
Oh yeah.
And it has all the individual stories of Jesus Christ from his birth to his ascension, all the way around it. It is spectacular. And so you go in and you think, this is really, really beautiful. It has some beautiful things in it. And then you go to look at this curtain. I think the curtain itself took 200 days to build. When the cathedral was
200 years or days?
200 years.
Yeah.
200 years.
200
What am I
years.
saying?
Yeah.
But when the cathedral burned, tell them how many years that took to rebuild.
Can't remember.
Oh gosh, it's
A long time.
not very, because
That's right.
They had all the townspeople building it.
And it was a miracle of how fast they were able to reconstruct it.
Yeah.
That's right. I remember that now.
And I don't know where I wrote it down, but there's just so much information. You get to a point, you just are like overloaded with information. So I don't know if you have anything else to say, but I just really want to give my testimony of how important family is. And it's not a trip for feminists. It's not anything like that, because we're not trying to take the role of men. We are a dyadic partner to our husband. That's why family is so important. And we're considered a family church. Husband, man, and wife, legally and lawfully wedded. And I truly
According to God's law.
According to God's law. Thank you. Anyway, I just have this really cemented my testimony of families even more so than ever, because by early church people or whomever, by them taking the women out of things, it showed to me how important a woman really is, because they, what's the word I'm looking for? They poisoned the role of womanhood in the church. Mm-hmm. They really did. And no, I'm not a feminist. Wasn't a trip on feminism. We're not trying to take over, but we are trying to, and the trip just showed to me how important this dyadic partner is for two people to have an opposite partner to help fulfill God's creation for us, because that's what we know is, we all have immortality, but we might not all have eternal lives, and eternal lives comes from seed, procreation. So beautiful.
Awesome. That was awesome. That was great.
It's so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And I know people will say, you can look all this up. There's much information. If you want any information on some of the books, we have lots of information, or you don't need to. You don't need to pray, fast, or even think about this, other than It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And there, just to be able to go and look at those cathedrals with all of that stained glass and all of the pictures and creation of God the Father. What about the one that had Jesus Christ at the center and God off to the side and the Holy Ghost?
Yeah.
The dove.
That was in Paris. It sits up on top of a huge hill.
Oh my heavens, that one is absolutely incredible.
Goodness. We didn't have much time in that one.
We didn't. Oh well.
But
anyway, that's how it is.
And that the dove represents Heavenly Mother. So it was a family.
Yes, and we are heretics because we do have some beliefs that...
Yeah. All right.
And you know what? On that, all I'm going to say is be not afraid. We were born to do this. And go forward bravely, fearing nothing, trusting in God, and all will be well.
Well said. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Love you all. Bye-bye.